بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها هبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون ولا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينظر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا نعما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون ولا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي ينشاها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعلكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد الفاتحة
خوشنودی امام زمانہ بآواز بلند صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد فرماتے تھے علی ولی شاہ لا فتح تا زندگی تو ہاتھ وہ زہرا کا خم رہا پر غسل میں نے میت زہرا کو جب دیا چاہا کہ اس کنجو کو کروں ہاتھ سے جدا دل تنگ آخر ہو گیا مجھ دل ملول کا سیدھا ہوا نہ ہاتھ جناب بطول کا آخر اسی طرح سے رہا دشت پاک خم میت کو پھر کفن بھی پنایا بچشم نم تابوت میں جو لاش لٹایا بصد علم تب آل مصطفیٰ سے یہ بولے شہ امم کر لو وداع تم سے وداع اب بطول ہے یہ آخری زیارت بنت رسول ہے یہ سن کے آئے اہل حرم بادل فغار تابوت فاطمہ پہ ہوئی بی بیاں نثار مل کے گلے سے لاش کہ زینب تھی اشک بار کلثوم پاؤں چومتی تھی ماں کے بار بار گل تھا کہ وقت ماتم بنت رسول ہے یہ آخری وداع جناب بطول ہے پر جب جناب شبر شبیر نیک نام آئے وداع لاش کو دل اپنا تھام تھام تب فاطمہ کے بندے کفن کھل گئی تمام نکلے کفن سے دشت رسول فلک مکان کس درجے چاہتی تھی ہر ایک نور عین کو لپٹا لیا گلے سے حسن اور حسین کو زینب نے بھائیوں کو کیا لاش سے جدا، رو کر علی نے شب برو شبیر سے کہا، لو اب اٹھاؤ ماں کا جنازہ بصد بکا، آئی صدا نہ دو انہیں تکلیف مرتضی، یہ بوجھ میرا احمد مرسل اٹھائیں گے، تابوت فاطمہ کا محمد اٹھائیں گے، خاموش اے دبیر نہیں طاقت بیان، جو زخم تازہ دیدے دل سے ہے خون روان، حق سے یہ مانگ کے اے رب انس و جان، بہر بطول دختر پیغمبر زمان، ہر لہجہ مجھ کو یاد شہ نامدار ہے، یا رب در حسین سب کی مزار ہو، ارواح المؤمنین والمؤمنات ثواب الفاتحہ.
محمد و آل محمد صلوات، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. آج دونوں جہاں میں ہے ماتم بپا، آج دونوں جہاں میں ہے ماتم بپا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، دیکھو سورج کے گھر میں اندھیرا ہوا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ. ایک محشر اٹھی ایک قیامت مچی، آج دنیا سے خاتون جنت چلی، آج دنیا سے خاتون جنت چلی، اب اکیلے اکیلے ہے شیر خدا، اب اکیلے اکیلے ہے شیر خدا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ. دیکھ لو دونوں بچوں کا کوئی نہیں، آج سے ان یتیموں کا کوئی نہیں، آج سے ان یتیموں کا کوئی نہیں، سر سے حسنین کے ماں کا سایہ اٹھا، سر سے حسنین کے ماں کا سایہ اٹھا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ. آپ کے ہاتھوں سے غسل میت ملے اور اٹھے یہ جنازہ تو شب کو اٹھے، اور اٹھے یہ جنازہ تو شب کو اٹھے، مرنے کے بعد بھی رکھنا پردہ میرا، مرنے کے بعد بھی رکھنا پردہ میرا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، پاس بلوا کے بچوں کو بوسے دیے، جاتے جاتے یہ بچوں کو تحفے دیے، جاتے جاتے یہ بچوں کو تحفے دیے، دیکھ کر یہ فرشتوں کا دل ہل گیا، دیکھ کر یہ فرشتوں کا دل ہل گیا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، مرنے سے پہلے بچوں کا کتنا خیال، اچھے کپڑے پہنا کے سوارے ہے بال، اچھے کپڑے پہنا کے سوارے ہے بال، کیسی ہوتی ہے ماں تم نے دکھلا دیا، کیسی ہوتی ہے ماں تم نے دکھلا دیا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، زہر تم کو دیا جائے گا اے حسن، میرا شبیر رہ جائے گا بے کفن، میرا شبیر رہ جائے گا بے کفن، تم کو کرنا ہے نانا کا وعدہ وفا، تم کو کرنا ہے نانا کا وعدہ وفا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، آج دونوں جہاں میں ہے ماتم بپا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، فوضوا أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير. والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وآتي ذي القربى حقه. صدق الله العلي العظيم. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman in Allentown, Pennsylvania, throughout North America, and wherever you are hearing my voice, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: was Fatima al-Zahra killed? Keep that question in the back of your mind, inshallah, we'll return to it. We've been discussing Fatima al-Zahra as a personality that can teach us about how to live in our homes and in our lives. The dynamics of today's and tonight's lecture will be slightly different because we move away from the individual and the home to a broader definition. We looked at home and work and things of this nature. But now we're going to the societal level, at the level of how to run a society and move towards progress. You see, in Islam, the house nucleus is what builds up society. Homes add up and they build a society. But also there must be a leader to run society. This was the Holy Prophet, and the idea of Allah and His Messenger and the Imams was to have 12 vicegerents, 12 Imams thereafter. If you recall, I mentioned that one of the aspects of the name of Fatima al-Zahra, I mentioned 2 nights ago, that Allah had said that Fatima comes from Fatima, meaning to safeguard or to put an end to or to protect. And in one of the definitions, she was the protector of wilaya. Therefore, whenever wilaya was on the line, she came forward. And that is what we want to look at tonight. How Fatima al-Zahra can be understood as a role model for our society, for our world, and how people should lead in our world. And the way that we understand this is through her ceremony of Fadakiyya, the Fadak ceremony. Understanding that, how she took that stand, how she gave that statement, and the issues surrounding Fadak, because Fadak is not only about Fadak, it's just an example. The greater issue of Fadak is actually the issue of justice, and it is the role of the leader to establish justice on earth. Therefore, I want to look at the aspects of Fatima al-Zahra's life that help us understand how we should lead in society, and also what happened to her as to understand what is not justice, what is not adala, what is not the way of the Ahlul Bayt. By understanding what? By understanding what her enemies did to her, we can understand what we are not to do as well. Therefore, in the brief moments that we have together, I want to look at a few things with respect to Fatima al-Zahra. I want to, number one, look at what is the issue of Fadak. What is Fadak and what was the basis of Fadak? Number two, I want to look at the sermon or the khutbah of Fadakiyya. What did Fatima al-Zahra say in this historic statement? And what can we learn from it? Number three, I want to look at why did Ali ibn Abi Talib not take back Fadak when he was ruling? It's a good question, because as you know, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, Umar II, is the one who took back Fadak or gave back Fadak to Ahlul Bayt. However, Ali ibn Abi Talib was ruling after Uthman, the third Khalifa. Therefore, why didn't Ali, when he had power, take back Fadak? It's a good question. We'll answer it, inshallah. The next level, I want to look at the event of the door. Did the event of the door actually happen? And if so, what's the proof and the evidence? And number five, relating to that is, what was the history of Umar, the second Khalifa? And so when we understand this, we can understand what's going on with this issue. And then finally, I want to look at another question, which is asked: why didn't Ali ibn Abi Talib come to the door to assist Fatima al-Zahra when the event of the door happened? And at the last level, the musibah. But the musibah starts by understanding the connection between Ghadir, Fadak, the event of the door, and Karbala. All of these are connected and help us understand the musibah of Fatima al-Zahra. This is our agenda for tonight, inshallah, wherever you are. In Allentown, Pennsylvania, throughout North America, wherever you are hearing my voice, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In a community like Allentown, which I visited and I've mentioned to you is like home to me, I don't need to tie much of the introduction parts. You already know many of the aspects. Therefore, I'm going to quickly cover much substance. I invite you to pay close attention, and I invite you, for the youngsters especially, perhaps even take notes so you have answers to some of these issues, because it's going to go very fast. Many of the elders or those who have listened to Majalis for a long time, they will be able to understand some of the insights or the points that I am pointing to or alluding to, but I may not be able to get into the depths. The first level of analysis that I want to come to is the issue of fadak. Number one, what was fadak? Fadak in its zahiri, in its apparent form, was a garden, a bagh. It was a garden that was given by Rasulullah to Fatima al-Zahra and Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? The Quran revealed the verse that I recited at the beginning. وَآتِ ذِي الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ. Give the near ones their due. At that point in time, what was the background story? At that point in time, Rasulullah had gotten some property without any bloodshed being spilled. This goes into the law of fay, and it's not something that has to do with Baytul Mal. Therefore, he gave this to Fatima al-Zahra and Ali al-Murtada, and they ran this for 3 to 4 years before the death of the Holy Prophet, or the martyrdom of the Holy Prophet. When this happened, there were workers who worked on the land of Fadak. When they worked on the land of Fadak, Fatima al-Zahra would arrange for their salaries and all of these elements to make sure that they are in place. On top of that, we understand that Fatima al-Zahra would make sure that the wages were paid, and she looked after the affairs. When she looked after the affairs of this historic, this Bagh Fadak, or this garden of Fadak, Bagh being the Persian Urdu word for garden, when she looked after this, at that point in time, she's taking care of it. When Rasulullah leaves this world, when he leaves this world, what happens? When he leaves, they take over Fadak from Fatima al-Zahra. A question that comes here is, what happened first, the event of the door or Fadak, or the usurpation of Fadak, or the taking of Fadak? Historically, ulama say, when the event of the door happened, which we'll come to in a few moments, when the event of the door happened, they were seeking bay'ah. They were seeking bay'ah from Ali ibn Abi Talib. But when Fadak happened, they actually took Fadak away, is when they had already established power. Therefore, the event of the door happened first, then the khutbah of Fadak happened second. This is at least the argument. You see, as we get closer down the line, as we begin to discuss some of these aspects and talk about them more and more, we need to understand some very important points. Because our brothers in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are our brothers. According to the Maraji, they are our own nafs, our own self. The conversation is not to cause any disunity. The issue is because today I have my Hazara brothers and sisters in Afghanistan and Pakistan being killed in a way that they are being butchered in broad daylight. The news is in front of you in our world. Who's to speak up? Why? Because they have love of Ali and Fatima in their heart, they're being butchered, and I'm not to say anything? You see, that's not the issue. The issue is you don't see the type of brutality that the Hazara community faces anywhere in the world. America, with all the racism that we have till this day in this time, you don't have a situation. Do you know what racism and discrimination the Hazara go through? Have you ever seen a place in the world where just by how someone looks, there's a shoot on sight order? That's what it's like for some of our Hazara brothers and sisters. Not one time, this isn't the first time. Decade after decade, year after year, they're having to deal with it. Why? Because they believe in a certain thing. They believe in Ali and Fatima? No, they believe in what you write in your own books. Therefore, in this conversation, I will not use any riwayat from Shia books, none. I will only use riwayat from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah books. I will be using Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood. I will be using Ruh al-Ma'ani, not a Shia book. I will be using Al-Faruq, Shibli Nomani. I will be using all books that do not belong to Shias. They belong to our other brothers in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Why? So that no one can say that the Shias have gone off the wrong end. Stop. When will this killing of Shias stop? And on top of that, when they are killed, the Hazara or Shias in general, the response is so soft from the Muslim world. That means there's still some belief that the Shias have gone off on the wrong end. Therefore, I need to give a comprehensive response. Fatima al-Zahra, when Fadak was usurped, he steals Fadak away. When the news reaches Fatima al-Zahra that Fadak has been stolen, and when Fadak has been stolen, the employees there have been told to go home. This now belongs to the state, and the Khalifa is ruling over it. At that point, she calls Asma, she calls Fizza, and she calls the women. She said, listen, I am going to give the muqaddimah. I am going to give the argument. I am going to tell them how they have taken Fadak away from me. Not for her own nafs, not for her own self. Because remember, Fadak was not about the garden, it was about justice. It was about truth. It was about honesty. It was about integrity. You see, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, during his time, they asked him, the Khalifa of the time wanted to give back Fadak. He said, can you draw for me the corners of Fadak? He gave him a pen and paper to draw the corners of Fadak, the boundaries, so that they can give Fadak back. Do you know what the Imam wrote? The Imam drew a map of the world at the time. He said, Yabna Rasulullah, we said the boundaries of Fadak, you drew a map of the world. He said, you didn't understand. He said, what? He said, Fadak is not a garden. Fadak is actually the right of Ahlul Bayt. It's the entire world. Fadak wasn't about a garden. It was about giving the Ahlul Bayt their due. They were supposed to rule. An example of this comes from Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili. Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili is not Shia. Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili, his name Mu'tazili is saying, I'm not Shia. Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili is the one who wrote Sharh Nahj al-Balagha. He writes that I will explain to you through an example why they didn't give Fadak back. What did he say? He said that at that point in time, there were two students in a class. He says, one student, the teacher asked him, say the alphabet in Arabic. Say alif, ba, ta, tha, go all the way to the end. The students didn't even say alif. The teacher said, you don't even know alif? Stop, I'm not even going to waste my time with you. He moves on to the next one. The second student, he says the letters, and then he moves on. The friend says, listen, I know you know some of the alphabet. Why didn't you say? He said, I know a little bit, but I didn't say alif because if I said alif, he would take me all the way to the end. And then I would not know them. And so he would beat me every single time. I wanted from the beginning not to give him any letters, so he moves on with me. He says, you're not worth my time. Don't waste my time. When this happened, at that point in time, what Ibn Abul Hadid said in his book, he said that this was the case of Fadak. That if Abu Bakr gave back Fadak to Fatima al-Zahra, the issue was not Fadak. What would happen was, he would say, give back the Khilafah. It would say, Fadak's given back, now give back Khilafah. That means that they would have to accept Ghadir. They would have to accept everything the Ahlul Bayt said. So he said, don't even give Fadak back. That was the issue. Fatima al-Zahra, she had two options. She's going towards with the ladies, towards the masjid. Now, she can enter into the masjid through her door or the main door. What do I mean her door? If you remember in Dua Nudba, there's the famous line, وَسَدَّ الْأَبْوَابَ إِلَّا بَابَ. This line where it's being said that all the doors of the masjid were ordered to be closed because people used to come in untahir states into the masjid and all of this, you know what I'm talking about. But Rasulullah said, was told by Jibreel, have all the doors closed except the door of Fatima. At that to Ali and Fatima. That means one of the doors of Fatima al-Zahra opened into the masjid. She could have used that door to come in the masjid. She didn't. She came from the main door. She came from the front door. Why? So everyone sees and knows that I am coming into the masjid. She came and then she began to give her argument. I want you to remember this. I've told you this before. As a reminder, I'm reminding you. Ayatollah Najafi Marashi, the one who has the largest library in Asia. This man who's dedicated his life to books. This man who used to take loans from his students in order to be able to save rare manuscripts of Tashayyu. This person, imagine how much he's read. He is giving 25 points to his son, the most important points of his life in the will, his wasiyah to his son. 3 of those points have to do with Fatima al-Zahra. He says, my son, make sure, number 1, you never forget the tasbih of Fatima al-Zahra. It will help you in the most difficult time. Never forget this tasbih of Fatima Zahra, number one. He says, number two, make sure that in the qunut of salah, you make sure you always recite بِحَقِّ فَاطِمَةَ وَأَبِيهَا وَبَعْلِهَا وَبَنِيهَا وَالسِّرِّ الْمُسْتَوْضِعَ فِيهَا أَنْ تُصَلِّ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى الطَّاهِرِينَ. Number two. Number three, he says, my son, never forget the khutbah of Fadakiyah. Never forget this khutbah. He says that some of the greatest linguists, some of the greatest grammarians, some of the greatest intellectuals of Arabia have neglected this khutbah. But some have recognized it, because some historians in the Ahl Sunnah world said, if any woman were to be known in all of Arabia as the most fasih, the most baligh, the most eloquent of all women, it would be Fatima Zahra, based on the khutbah of Fadakiyah. So what did she say? Ayatul Najaf Marashi said, make sure you study the sermon of Fadak, the khutbah Fadakiyah. In fact, many of the Sadat and those who had to migrate because of the oppression of the rulers, whether they were moving from Arabia to Persia to India and throughout the world, they would make sure that no matter where they had to leave, they would make sure their children memorized the khutbah, the sermon of Fadak, because it was part of the identity. Now, what does the khutbah say? What did Fatima Zahra say? She said, number one, she began by explaining Tawheed. Then she went into Adala. Then she went into Nubuwa. Then she went into Imama. And then she went after the usul. Then she went into the furu. She started by saying, all praise is due to Allah. She does the sana and the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She says that all praise is due to Allah, who sent messengers and my father Rasulullah to move you from darkness into light. And she talks about the adala, the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She talks about why. And she says, my father, Rasulullah, he taught you. What state were you in? She explains. She tells him, what state were you in? Look at the justice that Fatima Zahra is establishing. What state were you in? You used to drink water from stagnant puddles. You didn't know what tahir and najis was. You didn't know what that was. My father told you what that is. Then she went forward. After Nubuwwat, she went into Imamat. She said, my Ibn Am, referring to her husband, Abul Hassan, she said, my husband brought you victory and when there was no one to bring you victory. Every battle, Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, Khaybar, Haydar, every single time it was Ali who brought victory. At that point in time, she said, my husband, have you forgotten how many battles he won for you? And she continued. And then he said, all praise to Allah who ordained, for example, Iman and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? To protect you against shirk. So all praise to Allah, for example, who ordained salah, who ordained namaz, who ordained prayers. Why? To keep your heart humble, to protect you from arrogance. A principle here. She's telling the guy on the other side, you say you pray, but your actions show that there is not humility in your heart. There is arrogance in your heart. That's a question for you and I as well. That when we pray, do we have humility in our heart? Or is there arrogance in our heart? It may be we are praying, but if arrogance is still in the heart, that means that the salah is not getting to its manzil. The salah may not be getting to where it's due. These things are very important. Then she continues, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained fasting so that your health is upright. And she continues that Allah ordains zakat and khums so that your wealth grows. And she talked about jihad, and she continues up until the point, then she starts to give the dalail, the dalil as to why fadak belongs to her. And she says, وَآتِ ذِي الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ, the verse I recited at the beginning, that Allah, that give to the near ones their dues. And she says, وَوَارِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُد. And she continues verse after verse. The interesting thing was the opposition on the other side. Every single time, every time she would say an ayah of the Quran, he would bring a hadith. Ayah, hadith on the other side. Fatima Zahra is giving ayat of the Quran, you're bringing a hadith. On top of that, he says that your father told me, we, the Anbiya, we don't leave behind inheritance. We don't leave behind inheritance? When did he tell you this? Oh, he told me this in my ear. He told you this in your ear, and he didn't tell his daughter Fatima Zahra, who he says, Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen, Fatima Zahra? Really? Nonetheless, Fatima answered every single thing, but she knew he won't accept. She knew that he will not accept. And therefore, she was just establishing for the pages of history the principles of justice. She was outlining those. He left. She left, and he did not accept. On top of that, we go forward. Fadak. The question I wanted to come with is question number 2. That is, why did Ali al-Murtada not take Fadak back when he was the Khalifa, the Zahiri Khalifa? This is very important. Number 1, the first principle, you need to understand the political environment at that time. Please pay close attention. This is very important. Why did Imam Ali not take Fadak back? This is what was going on. When the second Khalifa left this world, the third Khalifa came to power. As you know, there was a shu'ara, there was a group, there was a council between a few individuals with Abdul Rahman ibn Auf having veto power. It was a planned thing, and they put Uthman in power. Now, Uthman was the first Umayyad ruler. He was the first ruler from Banu Umayyah, the same family as Muawiyah, the same family as Yazid. Now, when Uthman came to power, the first thing that he did was he gave extra money to his relatives. This was a tradition amongst Banu Umayyah, from Uthman to Muawiyah to Yazid, all the way down the line. They would give their relatives and close ones a lot of wealth. But from where? From the Baytul Mal. So what happened? When he comes to power, he gives extra money to his relatives. So who does he give extra money to? This point is very important. Marwan. You know, in Ziyarat Ashura, he says, وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ آلَ Marwan. That line, those words were uttered by Rasulullah himself. Rasulullah had done la'ana on Marwan and on his lineage. This was the cousin of Uthman. During the reign of the first Khalifa and the reign of the second Khalifa, do you know what happened? During the reign of the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa, Marwan was banished from the Muslim empire, from Mecca or Medina. He could not be there because of what Rasulullah had said. As soon as Usman comes to power, he gives 500 dirham to Marwan from the money of the African income that the Muslim state was getting from. Remember this point, number 1. Number 2, he gives Marwan Fadak. Fadak, he gave to Marwan. Uthman did. Now, this extra money that Uthman was giving to his relatives, to his family, where was that coming from? He must have been cutting it from someone and giving it from somewhere else. So I told you he took some money from Africa, but he also cut the stipend of the wives of Rasulullah, Aisha and the likes. He cut their stipend. So Aisha, I'm using all Ahl Sunnah references, no Shia references. Read Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud. When this was taken away, she became very upset, Aisha. When she became very upset, she raised a slogan, kill the Jew. Not my words, the riwayah, I'm just reporting. She said, kill this person. And she used to say, he looks like this Jewish person. And so she would give a comparison between the two. Nonetheless, I don't have time for that. So she said, kill him off. So what happened? A group of the African community came towards Uthman because they were upset, because their money was being taken and misappropriated and they were not getting their dues. They came towards Uthman. When they came to Medina, Uthman said, I refuse to meet them. When Uthman said, I refuse to meet them, he said, go send them to Ali. Ali will take care of it. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen said, you must meet with them. He refused. The first principle that Ali ibn Abi Talib, which if you remember the letter to Malik al-Ashtar, he also said, make sure you make yourself accessible to the people. Amir al-Mu'mineen himself used to be accessible. The first principle of leadership, you must be accessible to people. They must be able to reach you and tell you their grievances. He says, Uthman, listen, you need to listen to their grievances. They have issues. You need to address them. You're the leader, apparently, according to the people. He says, I refuse. I know what they want. I'm not giving it to them. So they got together. Aisha riled them up and said, get rid of him. These slogans raised and they assassinated Uthman. When this happened, this is what I need you to pay attention to according to Islamic history. Parental discretion may be advised throughout this lecture. At this point in time, when he was assassinated at that point in time, then what happened? Then at that point in time, Aisha thought that she may get power. But she didn't. The power came to Ali ibn Abi Talib. People went to the door of Ali ibn Abi Talib. When they went to the door of Ali ibn Abi Talib, then what happened? They came to his door and they said, you need to be the Khalifa. There's no one else. Ali ibn Abi Talib accepted. So she got more upset. So what did Aisha do? She went to Mecca. She left Medina, went to Mecca. She gathered Talha and Zubair. They go towards Mecca. They start a revolt movement. She says that we must take revenge against Ali for the death of Uthman. In that riwayah that I'm telling you from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the people there began to say, were you not the one who told people to rise against Uthman and kill him? She said, yes, I said that, but my second qawl, my second statement, this new statement is a'la, is better than my first. Ajib. She said, this is the statement. Ali, we must take revenge against Ali for the killing of Uthman. Now, what was the allegation against Imam Ali? People started the rumors, such as Aisha, Talha and Zubair and others, that Ali was responsible for the killing of Uthman. Please pay close attention here. They were saying that Ali didn't defend him. In fact, Imam Ali had sent Imam Hassan to defend Uthman. Why didn't Imam Ali himself go? Imam Ali himself didn't go because people would say, oh, Ali was defending him, that means Ali supported his Khilafah. You see, Imam Ali saw things very far. Remember, Imam Ali is the one who said, I can beat Muawiyah at his own game if I want, but my principles don't allow it. I will not use the wrong means. So this was Ali ibn Abi Talib. So they started blaming him for the death of Uthman. So that's how Jamal took place. Now I want you to think about this. And this is what the ulama have said. With respect to Fadak, what would happen? Number one, Uthman becomes Khalifa. Uthman gives Fadak to Marwan, his relative. When this happens, then Uthman is assassinated. When Uthman is assassinated, they blame Ali ibn Abi Talib. If you follow the logic through, what if Ali ibn Abi Talib took Fadak back? Think about this now. If Ali ibn Abi Talib took Fadak back while he was ruling, what would they say? They would say, look, Uthman becomes Khalifa, Uthman gives Fadak to his cousin, his relative Marwan, who Rasulullah cursed, and then he's assassinated, and Ali takes back Fadak. Look, Ali had a motive to take back Fadak. You see, that's what history would have written. Proof and evidence that Ali is the responsible. He wanted Fadak all along. Marwan was given Fadak. He wanted to take revenge. He had him killed and he took back Fadak. You see, this is what history would have written. But Ali ibn Abi Talib saw way further down the line. So he didn't let this happen. Therefore, he did not take Fadak. You see, what is Fadak? Remember, I told you about the pomegranate event last night. Ali ibn Abi Talib can hit the ground and pomegranates will come. This is the house where food comes from Jannah. Manna Salwa comes to the house of Ali and Fatima. The angels descend. You don't think he can have some pomegranates out of season? You don't think that he can have whatever he wants? But it was a principle to teach you and I that they are bound by the time and space of this world because they operate in its rules. So Ali did not take back Fadak for that reason. That's important for us to know. The next level about Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. With respect to Ali ibn Abi Talib, now we come to the event of the door, a very important moment in the history of the world. Because certain people have said, the event of the door didn't happen. The event of the door is something that the Shias made up to cry in their majalis more. I want to use Ahl Sunnah references so that we can give an answer to those who butcher our brothers and sisters from the Hazara community or any Shias in this day and age, or any Muslims for that matter. I need to give a response. Who's going to give the response otherwise? So number one, did the event of the door happen? Number one. And number two, why didn't Ali ibn Abi Talib do anything? Or did he do anything? We'll come to this in a moment. The first thing that we need to look at with respect to the event of the door is Allama Shibli Nomani. Shibli Nomani is not a Shia scholar. He wrote a very famous book called Al-Faruq, about the life and times of Umar al-Faruq, as he's known. Of course, al-Faruq was a title of Amir al-Mu'mineen, as was Siddiq Akbar, but these were titles that were stolen from him. That's for another time. At that point in time, we're told that al-Faruq, what happens in that, they take, this is a book that's used in many universities across the world, by the way, I should say that. It's an academic text. In al-Faruq, Shibli Nomani says that the event of the door, it's plausible that fire, he says, number one, they took fire and wood to the door of Fatima, but they did not intend to use it. Shibli Nomani, who told you their niyyah? How do you know? He said, that was just to intimidate them. You bring fire and wood to the door of Fatima Zahra to intimidate her, the daughter of Rasulullah, who Rasulullah says, Fatima bad'atum minni, who Rasulullah says, Fatima is Sayyidatul Nisa'il Alameen. This Fatima, you bring fire and wood to intimidate her? Really? And then Shibli Nomani says a line that I want you to think about. Shibli Nomani says, but knowing the nature of Umar, knowing the nature of the second Khalifa, it is not surprising if he did what the Shia say that he did. This line needs to be analyzed. What did Shibli Nomani know about the nature of Omar al-Faruq, as they call him, that made him say it would not be surprising? Therefore, let's look at the history of Omar. Number one, with respect to his history, you need to understand, when did he become Muslim? According to historians, he was either a Jew or a pagan before accepting Islam. Now, the question we want to look at is, did he actually strike anyone? Did he actually attack any women before or after the event of the door? Did he do abuse in this way, the way that he did at the event of the door? I want to look at this in history. According to historians from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, one of the first things in history that's written about Omar is what happened when his sister accepted Islam. His sister accepted Islam before him. His sister and her husband. When he heard the news, accepted by all Muslims, he bolted to the door of his sister, barged in, and beat her so much. Parental discretion. He beat her so much that I cannot tell you. Nonetheless, and he beat her, his own brother-in-law, his sister's husband. This is documented historically, number one. Number two, during the time of Abu Bakr and Umar, there's a moment in time accepted by Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in their own books, where Umar took a woman from Banu Ma'mul, a Muslim lady, and he beat her in front of Abu Bakr. And he said, he was beating her up until the point that he said, I will not beat you anymore because I myself have become tired from beating you. I don't have any more energy to beat you. I would have beat you more. At that point in time, Abu Bakr didn't do anything. He was watching this. She said that Allah will take justice on the day of judgment with what you've done. The second event. The third one, after the event of the door. Did he ever attack anyone? Accepted by Ahl Sunnah in the Ahl Sunnah books, not Shia books. Aisha, when Abu Bakr died, the daughter of Abu Bakr, Aisha, had a mourning gathering to mourn and wail and cry for her father who had just died. She was there. The sister of Abu Bakr, Farwa, and others were there. This is what I want to narrate to you. When Omar found out that they have created a mourning gathering at the house of Aisha, he sent his men and went himself. He went with a man by the name of Hisham, as well as himself, and went to the door of Aisha, and he said, send out Farwa, the sister of Abu Bakr, bint Abi Quhafa. The name of Abu Bakr was Abu Bakr ibn Abi Quhafa. He said, send out the daughter of Abi Quhafa. Send out Farwa. And then the riwayah says Zarbatan, that he struck her with a whip, not once, not twice, three. In Arabic, there's singular, plural, and three or more. Sorry, singular, duality, two. One, two, and three or more. You know, in English, you have singular, plural. In Arabic, no. That means that he struck her at least 3 times with a whip and beat her ferociously. He beat her viciously. 3 documented moments in history where he, in addition to the event of the door, where he struck women and beat them and abused them in public. This is why Shibli Nomani and Al-Faruq was saying, based on his nature, it would not be a surprise as to what he did. Not my books. That means he had done these things. The next level, with respect to the event of the door, there is no denying that this event happened and this torture took place at the door of Fatima al-Zahra. But the next question emerges, why didn't Ali do anything if he was in the house? This I want to answer because this is extremely important. Many people get confused about this issue. I want to make it crystal clear for you and I. Who said, number one, that Ali ibn Abi Talib didn't come and do anything? That's a question. We'll answer that. At that point in time, Ali ibn Abi Talib, in fact, he took Omar when he did this torture at the house. He took him by the collar, flipped him over, and he said, had it not been for my promise to Rasulullah, I would have finished you then and there, right now. I would have finished you right now. but I had made a promise. What promise did Ali al-Murtaza make to Fatima al-Zahra or to Rasulullah, the father of Fatima al-Zahra? There's a moment in time where Rasulullah is crying. He's in his final moments. He's on his deathbed. Ali al-Murtaza is there. He said, Ya Rasulullah, why are you crying in this way? He says, Oh Ali, I am crying for what this ummah will do to you after me. Ahl Sunnah reference on this one. I am crying for what this ummah will do to you after me. He says, Ya Ali, be patient. He says, Ya Ali, they will strike your wife, be patient. They will do things to your children, be patient. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I will be patient. And he says, Ya Ali, make sure that you do not pick up your sword and fight them. So he had made a promise to Rasulullah. In fact, from our perspective, there's a riwayah that Jibreel descended and said, and he brought 12 documents to Rasulullah. He said, Ya Rasulullah, these are for your vicegerents. These are for your representatives after you, for Ali, for Hassan, for Hussein, and down the line. Amir al-Mu'mineen gets the 12 documents from Rasulullah. He takes his, he gives the rest to Imam Hassan. Imam Hassan takes his, passes it down, and so on and so forth. At that point in time, Amir al-Mu'mineen's tests, all of the Imam's tests were written in those documents. They accepted those tests. So it was a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have to deal with that difficulty, to have to deal with that environment. This was one level. Amir al-Mu'mineen did something, but he didn't raise his sword because they wanted to provoke him. And he had made a promise to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number one. Number two, but very importantly, you ask me questions and you've asked me questions for 14 centuries. I've been answering you. I have the right to ask you some questions, do I not? Do I not have the right to ask you some questions? You say that Ali ibn Abi Talib didn't do anything. You say that, oh, he was Haydar al-Karrar. He's the one who lifted the gate of Khaybar. No doubt. He was Asadullah al-Ghalib. No doubt. But how did someone put a rope in his neck and drag him around the city? It's not logical. It's not possible. You made this story up. This is the allegation. Well, I want to ask you, was there any instance, was there any circumstance where there were other people who you revere or we respect, and they saw torture and abuse happen and they didn't do anything? 3 examples. Ammar bin Yasir. Ammar bin Yasir is the 7th Muslim. His family are the early Muslims. His mother is being tortured in front of his eyes. He's very young at this age. Rasulullah says, Ammar, be patient, for Allah will reward you and your family with Jannah. Accepted by all Muslims. Now, Rasulullah saw what was happening to Ammar's mother. Rasulullah didn't do anything. Are you raising a question on Rasulullah? Number one. That's my first question to you. Rasulullah didn't do anything. Is there anyone more courageous than Rasulullah? Ali al-Murtaza himself says, I learned from Rasulullah. So you're saying that Ali al-Murtaza has more courage than Rasulullah? First question. The second question I have for you was the event I narrated to you just a moment ago. Omar is beating a woman in front of Abu Bakr, and he beat her so much that she is not able, that he gets tired from beating her. Abu Bakr was watching. Abu Bakr didn't do anything. So what's your answer to that? Abu Bakr watched Omar beat a woman and he didn't do anything about it. What's your answer there? The third question that I want to ask you, my dear non-Shia brothers and sisters, with respect to this issue, is an authentic traditions from your own school of thought say that the house of Uthman bin Affan, the 3rd Khalifa, they went and ambushed it. They went inside the house. Uthman was in the house. They beat Uthman's wife. They cut her finger off and he didn't do anything. What's your answer to that? Uthman, Abu Bakr, even Rasulullah didn't do anything. Whatever your answer is to these 3 issues, why Uthman didn't do anything, why Abu Bakr didn't do anything, why Rasulullah didn't do anything, when you answer this question, you'll have your answer as to why Ali ibn Abi Talib didn't do anything. I have the right to ask some questions too. 1400 years I've been answering your questions. What's your answer to my question? I would love to hear what you have to say. And Ali ibn Abi Talib did stand up and he did do something. He took him by the collar and he flipped him over and he said, I would have finished you right here. The jalal that they saw in the eyes of Ali ibn Abi Talib, they had not seen since the days of Khaybar. They knew this was the line of Allah. They knew this was the truth. But it was the test of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Ali ibn Abi Talib have to go through this test. That's why he's Imam al-Muttaqeen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya'sub al-Din, Asad Allah al-Ghalib. It's the test of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That's his position. That's the difficulty. But nonetheless, I want us to remember something. The event of the door happened, Ali ibn Abi Talib came to the defense. But this is the point I want you and I to always remember and never forget this point. Ghadir, as well as Fadak, as well as Karbala are all connected. Never forget this. Remember what Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili said. He said, listen, if they accepted Fadak, they would have to accept Ghadir. Because they were all connected. Rasulullah had appointed Ali at Ghadir. They would then have to accept and give Fadak back. Then they would have to give Khilafah back as well. That's why the poet says, Falak pe likha hua waqia Ghadir ka hai. Falak pe likha hua waqia Ghadir ka hai. Remember, on the day of Ghadir, the sun was very, very intense. Falak pe likha hua waqia Ghadir ka hai. Falak, the sky. Falak pe لکھا ہوا واقعہ غدیر کا ہے یہ آفتاب نہیں حاشیہ غدیر کا ہے یہ آفتاب نہیں حاشیہ غدیر کا ہے اور لگانے آگ جو آیا ہے بیت زہرا پر لگانے آگ جو آیا ہے بیت زہرا پر وہ کوئی اور نہیں دل جلا غدیر کا ہے لگانے آگ جو آیا ہے بیت زہرا پر وہ کوئی اور نہیں دل جلا غدیر کا ہے the one who brought fire to the door of Fatima al-Zahra is none other than the person who had his heart burnt at Ghadir. All of his hopes and his aspirations had gone down the drain. Wherever you are, send a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And Ali al-Murtaza is that one. If there is to send a nara on Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Nare Haydari.
Nare Haydari.
Ya Ali.
Haydari.
Ya Ali.
Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. That is the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Remember, if they gave Fadak, they would have to accept a Ghadir. That's the understanding of Ali. That's why, but no matter what, no matter how much property, no matter how much money, no matter how many historians they bought, no matter whatever they did, remember this statement, remember this line, that they cannot buy love. Even the rulers of the Muslim world today, you can buy anything you want, you can't buy love. The Ahlul Bayt have our love, we have the love of the Ahlul Bayt in our hearts. And that love carries us throughout. The poet says, some of my favorite lines of poetry, says, Lut ke aabad hai ab tak jo wo ghar kiska hai. Sabse uncha hai jo kat kar bhi wo sar kiska hai. ظلم شبیر کی ہیبت سے نہ لرزے کیوں کر ظلم شبیر کی ہیبت سے نہ لرزے کیوں کر کس نبی کا ہے نواسا یہ پسر کس کا ہے کس نبی کا ہے نواسا یہ پسر کس کا ہے کس کے ہجرت کے تسلسل سے شریعت ہے رواں کس کے ہجرت کے تسلسل سے شریعت ہے رواں قافلہ آج تلک شہر بدر کس کا ہے اور کس نے مقتل کی زمین چھو کے معلّہ کر دی کس نے مقتل کی زمین چھو کے معلّہ کر دی پوچھنا کرب و بلا سے یہ ہنر کس کا ہے کس نے مقتل کی زمین چھو کے معلّہ کر دی پوچھنا کرب و بلا سے یہ ہنر کس کا ہے اور تخت والوں نے مورخ بھی خریدے ہوں گے تخت والے the rulers تخت والوں نے مورخ بھی خریدے ہوں گے ذکر دنیا میں مگر شام و سحر کس کا ہے تخت والوں نے مورخ بھی خریدے ہوں گے ذکر دنیا میں مگر شام و سحر کس کا ہے The poet continues that کس کے ہجرت کے تسلسل سے شریعت ہے رواں قافلہ آج تلک شہر بدر کس کا ہے And then he continues on and he says لاش اکبر پہ قضا سوچ رہی ہے اب تک لاش اکبر پہ قضا سوچ رہی ہے اب تک جس میں ٹوٹی ہے یہ برچھی وہ جگر کس کا ہے کون ہر شام غم شہ میں لہو روتا ہے کون ہر شام غم شہ میں لہو روتا ہے آسمانوں سے ادھر دیدہ تر کس کا ہے آسمانوں سے ادھر دیدہ تر کس کا ہے Just a few more lines of poetry. I see my beloved Kaku uncle on. I just want to recite in honor of Fatima al-Zahra 2 or 3 lines, not much, with respect to the beloved Lady of Light. Midhate malkae haya kije. I wish I was in Allentown amongst the dear believers of Ahlul Bayt. I feel a sense of the love and the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt in that place that I don't feel in many places that I'm able to travel. It's one of the unique places. Midhate malkae haya kije, khums alfaz ka ada kije. Midhate malkae haya kije, khums alfaz ka ada kije. और सारे कामों को छोड़कर जिब्रील, सारे कामों को छोड़कर जिब्रील मदह ज़हरा मुलाहिजा कीजिए, सारे कामों को छोड़कर जिब्रील मदह ज़हरा मुलाहिजा कीजिए, और आपके घर भी आएंगी ज़हरा, आपके घर भी आएंगी ज़हरा, आप भी मजलिसे अज़ा कीजिए, आपके घर भी आएंगी ज़हरा, आप भी मजलिसे अज़ा कीजिए. नारे हैदरी
Ya Fatima.
हैदरी
Nare Ismat.
हैदरी
Ya
या
Fatima.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bas Azadaro, this is the musibah of Fatima al-Zahra. This is the difficulty of Fatima al-Zahra. This is her night. I will recite the masaib and the musibah for you of what happened at that calamity, that event of the door, that difficulty that ensued, that difficulty that took place. What was it? It breaks the heart. It breaks the heart, unfortunately. May Allah bless all of you, inshallah. May Allah bless all of you, inshallah. At this point in time, we're told that Fatima al-Zahra, salamullahi alayha, this great lady, when they brought the fire and the wood to the door of Fatima al-Zahra, do you know what happened? When they brought the fire, Fatima al-Zahra is behind the door. Imam Hassan is there. When Imam Hassan is there, he goes towards the door. When he goes towards the door, Lady of Light, Fatima al-Zahra says, "Oh Hassan, I will see the door. You stay away." Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen had already said, he said, "Listen, I am writing my book, collecting the riwayat, and I'm writing a tafsir of the Quran. I am not going to give bay'ah to anyone. I'm not going to give bay'ah to anyone." At that point in time, when this happened, when this ensued, when this occurred, at that point in time, they brought fire to the door of Fatima al-Zahra. When they brought fire to the door of Fatima al-Zahra, do you know what happened? Do you know what happened, O Mu'mineen? It was one of the most difficult things. Fatima al-Zahra said, "This is the household of Risala. This is the household of Ali and Fatima. This is the household where the angels descend." At that point in time, do you know what happened? They said, "Wa in, and let it be." And so they lit fire on the door of Ali and Fatima. When they lit fire on the door of Ali and Fatima, Fatima al-Zahra was behind the door. When she was behind the door, this was the door, and this was the wall. She was between the wall and the door. There was a nail in the door. That door was pushed in. An enemy of Allah put his foot on the ledge of the door. He pushed it in. It crushed Fatima al-Zahra. She said, "Oh Fidda, come to my assistance. Come to my aid. My Muhsin has been shaheed. Ajrukum ala Allah." May Allah bless you. All those ones who have the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. May Allah reward you for your tears. Fatima called on Fidda. She said, "My Muhsin has been shaheed." When Muhsin was shaheed, at that point in time, Ali comes. When Ali ibn Abi Talib comes, he takes this individual, he takes him by the collar, he flips him over. He says, "Had Rasulullah not made a promise with me, I would have finished you here. Leave for this moment." He said, "Look, I told you Ali won't fight because he promised Rasulullah." He said, "Put the rope in the neck of Ali." When they put the rope in the neck of Ali, Fatima al-Zahra took her hand and she put it on the aba of Ali. She said, I won't let you take him." At that moment, do you know what he did? He took a whip and he struck the hand of Fatima al-Zahra so hard. Her hand opened. They took Abu al-Hasan. Allah knows what they did. Do you know the musibah of Imam al-Hasan? Imam Hassan, he says, there was a certain Ali he would never pass. They said, "Ya ibn Rasulillah, why do you never pass this Ali? Why do you never go by this Ali?" He says, "Whenever I pass this street in Medina, I remember I was a 7 or 8-year-old boy. I saw them slap my mother on her." I saw them slap my mother on her face. It reminds me every single time. It breaks my heart. I'm not able to tolerate it. Ajrukum ala Allah. They took Ali to the masjid. When they took Ali to the masjid, Bibi Fatima says, "Oh Fidda, oh Asma, come together. We will go. I am going to the grave of my father. I am going to the grave of Rasulullah to give curse, to give la'na on this ummah for what they've done to me and my husband." Ali was in the masjid. He was with Salman. They had tied him down. He said, "Oh Salman, I need you to go to Masjid al-Nabi and go to the grave of Rasulullah." He says, "Ya Abul Hasan, I can't leave you here." He said, "You must go because Fatima is going to give curse on this nation. If she gives curse, nothing will remain." Salman goes, but Salman, before he leaves, he says, "Oh Abul Hasan, how do you know? How do you know that this is happening?" He says, "Oh Salman, look at the walls of Masjid al-Nabi. The walls were rising off the ground." Salman comes to the grave of Rasulullah. What does he see? Fatima al-Zahra is about to curse. He says, "Oh Bint Rasul, oh Fatima al-Zahra, do not curse. Ali has just said that if you curse, nothing will remain in Medina. Nothing will remain in this world. For my sake," Ali said, "Say, Salman, for my sake, don't do this." At that moment, Salman said, "Oh Fatima Zahra, oh Sayyidatun Nisa, do not do this for the sake of your husband, Amir al-Mu'mineen. That is what he has said." She began to cry. She said, "Oh Baba, oh Rasulullah, I came here to curse this ummah because of what they did to Abul Hasan for my husband. But now I am not going to do that for the sake of my husband. Ajrukum ala Allah." The musibah and the calamity of Fatima al-Zahra is very immense. They took her child. Remember, Fadak happened afterwards. That means Bibi was zakhmi. Bibi was already injured. She had lost Mohsin when she gave the khutbah Fadakiya. What musibah, Fatima al-Zahra. Azadaro, क़यामत हो गई. दो जुमले सुन लीजिए. कहते हैं कि बीबी सैयदा ने कहा, "ए अली, गस्सिलनी फिल लैल, कफ़िनी फिल लैल, दफ़िनी फिल लैल." ए मौला, ए अबुल हसन, ए अली, आप मुझे रात को गुस्ल दीजिएगा, रात को कफन दीजिएगा और रात में दफनाइएगा, मगर ए अबुल हसन, ये मेरी वसीयत है। मौला ने वसीयतें कबूल की, मगर मौला ने बीबी को गुस्ल दिया। मगर जब मौला ने गुस्ल दिया तो एक चीख निकली, एक आह निकली। अस्मा ने कहा, "ए मौला, आप असदुल्लाहिल गालिब, आप हैदर कर्रार, ए मौला, आप सबसे अरब में बहादुर, ये चीख क्या थी?" मौला ने कहा, "ए अस्मा, अस्मा, मेरी सैयदा की पसलियां टूट गई। सैयदा ने बताया नहीं 75 दिन कैसे गुजारे होंगे।" मौला रो पड़े। अजरुकुम अल्लाह। दो जुमले सुन लीजिए। जब बीबी आगे दो जुमले आखिरी मसाइब के। अजरुकुम अल्लाह, आपने बहुत रो लिया। एक मकाम आया, जब ये मरहला आया कि आखिरी विदा कर रहे थे, मौला अली ने कहा, "ए बच्चों, माँ से विदा कर लो, माँ को रुखसत कर लो।" इमाम हसन आए, बीबी जैनब आई, एक बच्चा नहीं आया। इमाम हुसैन नहीं आए। जब इमाम हुसैन नहीं आए तो कहा, "जब तक माँ बुलाएगी नहीं, मैं नहीं आऊंगा।" शेख अब्बास से कुम्मी कहते हैं कि बंदे कफन टूटे, सैयदा के हाथ बरामद हुए, آخری جملہ بی بی نے کہا اے میرے لال حسین آ جا، اے حسین آ جا۔ جبرائیل نازل ہوئے، کہا اے ابو الحسن امیر المومنین، حسین کو ماں سے جدا کر لیں، انبیاء میں تلا تم ہے، حسین اور فاطمہ مل رہے۔ ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Ya Allah, we ask you to grant us shifa in this night through Fatima al-Zahra. In those who are in need of rizq, give them rizq through Fatima al-Zahra. Ya Allah, all those mu'mineen in Allentown who have the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt, who have the love of Ahlul Bayt in their hearts, all those who have contributed towards the majlis, in the reciting, in the naras, in the recitation of the Marsiya and Salam, in the contribution in any way, in their words, in their actions, in their thoughts, in any way, Ya Allah, grant them their hajat in this night. Ya Allah, anyone who's suffering from illness, grant them alleviation from their illness, whether it's COVID or otherwise, by the sake and the wasta and the wasila of Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidul Nisa al-Alameen. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman and allow us to be amongst his companions when he returns. Wa akhir ad-da'wana and alhamdu lillahi rabbil alameen. Ma'tam Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
سینے میں لیے رنجو علم کرب و بلا کا یا فاطمہ زہرا، بابا سے ہے ملنے کو چلی ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، آنکھوں سے لہو بہتا ہے پہلو شکستہ یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا۔ امت نے بہت آپ کو تر پایا ہے بی بی، ہر حق کے لیے آپ کو ترسایا ہے بی بی، غاصب نے جو دربار میں بلوایا ہے بی بی، اس دکھ سے لرزنے لگا خود عرش خدا کا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا۔ شبیر کی دنیا میں ولادت سے بھی پہلے کہتی تھی یہ زہرا کہ بہت سہتی ہوں صدمے، بچائے میرا خاک میں بے چین بہت ہے، بچہ میرا کہتا ہے کہ اماں میں ہوں پیاسا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا۔ ماں کھانا کھلاتی ہے تو پھر کھاتے ہیں بچے، جاتی ہے جہاں ماں وہیں آ جاتے ہیں بچے، بن ماں کے کبھی چین نہیں پاتے ہیں بچے، کام آتا ہے بچوں کے بہت ماں کا سہارا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا۔ سینے میں ازل سے ہی میرے کرب و بلا ہے، جاتے ہوئے زہرا نے یہ دنیا سے کہا ہے، کیا شام میں ہونا ہے یہ سب مجھ کو پتا ہے، کیا شام میں ہونا ہے یہ سب مجھ کو پتا ہے، تپتے ہوئے صحرا میں ہے شبیر کا لاشا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا دنیا سے چلی کہتی ہوئی بنت پیمبر، غم کرب و بلا کا ہے لیے یہ دل مضطر، آتا ہے تصور میں میرے شام کا منظر، اللہ رکھے زینب و کلثوم کا پردہ، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا ام ابیہا، اے بی بی بانیے عذاب پیغام کربلا تیرا، جس نے سنا یہی کہا، یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ، دیکھ خطبوں کی برسرے دربار، جیسے چلتی ہو حیدری تلوار، کٹ کے گرتے تھے ظالموں کے جگر، جنگ خیبر تھی یا تیری لڑکا، یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ، یاد آتا ہے شام کا منظر، بی بی سر پہ تیرے نہ تھی چادر، ہر طرف پتھروں کی بارش تھی، تیری پوشاک تھی لہو میں تر، یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ، ہائے تو نے بچوں کی دی ہے قربانی، ہائے رے تیرا ذوق ایمانی، پیاس بھائی کی یاد میں تو نے خون بہایا ہے آنکھ کا پانی، یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ زینب کبریٰ، تیرے در پر یہ استغاثہ ہے، جو بھی فرش عزا پہ روتا ہے، اس پہ سایہ کرے تیرا غازی، وہ جو مشکل خوشا کا بیٹا ہے، یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ، ہاں یا زینب کبریٰ، کتنا مکروز ماتمی ہے تیرے، قرضہ تو غیب سے ادا کر دے، بی بی تو سخی کی بیٹی ہے، تو مفلس کو بادشاہ کر دے یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ یا زینب کبریٰ نب کبریٰ واسطہ اس اسیر بچی کی واسطہ اس اسیر بچی کا رسیوں میں بندہ تھا جس کا گھلا وہ جو پیاسی تھی مر گئی پیاسی کوئی بچہ نہ اب رہے پیاسا یا زینب کبریٰ 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 محمد و آل محمد صلوات
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين سيد وسيم. السلام عليك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك مولى وابن مولى. السلام عليك يا ابن السلام عليك مولى وابن مولى. السلام عليك يا السلام عليك يا السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين سيد وسيم. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك مولى وابن مولى. السلام عليك السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان سيدي الأمان في المسلمان. السلام عليك يا شيخ القرآن. السلام عليك كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله فرجه وصاح الله مخرج ظهوره. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.